There we go. One second, folks. Okay. What is good, everybody? It is the Godfather of VR, the ageless wonder, the man Lincoln Clay, coming back at you with a late evening, late night podcast, whatever you want to call it. Oh, excuse me. It is currently 10:51 p.m., February 6th, I believe. So yeah, it's pretty late here on the East Coast, and I know over in the UK, everybody's probably sleep over there, because I believe it's coming up on 4 a.m. over in the UK. So shout out to them whenever they get around to watching the replay of this podcast. And I probably should have done this. I probably should have had this podcast tomorrow, or even waited until Sunday to do this, as I plan to do live from Wakanda on Saturday as usual. But it's I guess the more I thought about this subject, the more I wanted to talk about it. Because I've dabbled in this subject a little bit. I've thrown little tidbits here and there about this subject, um, and that is pretty much what it's called. I've been wondering a lot lately if VR developers are waiting until the PS5 comes out to port their current games over to the PlayStation VR format. And I think that answer is probably an obvious yes. But the reason why I still pose that question is because we do have. I think over the past 6 months, we've probably had trailers and announcements of VR games that were coming out, and at some point was going to make it to the PlayStation VR. But in some of those announcements, we kind of gotten a window. Higher in the Lord. PS5 is supposed to be coming out holiday 2020. Most people are speculating November of 2020. So with these announcements about VR upcoming VR titles, um, with PCVR, some of these announcements have been a little more specific about a release window. Fall of 2020, first quarter of 2020, that kind of stuff. But they haven't really been able to give a specific date on PS5, not PS5, but PlayStation VR. In some cases, there have been, when they say targeted for second quarter of 2020, you might hear that PlayStation VR version to be released at a later date to be determined, that kind of stuff. So, to me, reading between the lines, I think that's basically the developers are saying we're going to wait until the PS5 comes out when we can port this game over, when we know that we have enough power and to be able to port this game over. But I mean, Big Cloud, what is going on, man? Nice of you to join me this late. This is, as I said before, this is a podcast that I probably should have done tomorrow during better hours, or maybe Sunday. But I took a very long nap. I woke up at about 8 o'clock, watched a little bit of Zaire and his crew and all this zany stuff that they're doing over there. And I was sitting back thinking, about the future of PlayStation VR relative to the PS5. And I even saw a video from, I even saw I was watching a stream from Upload VR. They do like a podcast using VR avatars, and they were wondering if Sony is going to be fully committed to PC PSVR 2. And I would like to think yes. And I think one of the reasons why Sony probably hasn't said much about PlayStation VR 2 is probably for the same reason that they've only been giving us limited information about the PS5. And that's because they still have stuff coming out this year. And if you start shifting focus towards PlayStation 5 and PSVR 2, that is going to stunt the momentum of the titles that's slated to come out this year, because as far as VR goes, we still got Iron Man VR coming out this year, and I believe there's still Sniper Elite is still another title slated to come to PSVR this year. What I don't know is whether or not it's going to be an exclusive or not. Fatal Charade, how's it going? Fatal Charade, how about a progress report, sir? How's your situation with you getting ready to get a Rift S? But I hate to see. I know for a fact that the dev for iRacing is waiting for the Series X and PS5 because the X and the Pro can't run racing. I wouldn't doubt that at all. Um, as far as the VR aspect of it goes, Fatal Charade, we seen. I think let me see. According to TurboTax, I should have my taxes back this coming Tuesday. Okay, and so then, how soon before you get a Rift S after that? Because I really want to see you jump on board with this, Fatal. I mean, I know you borrowed your friend's CV1 for a while. And I would love nothing better for you to join us in the VR community, my guy. But getting back to the subject about, devs waiting for the PS5 to port some of their VR titles over there. As soon as Best Buy has them in stock, you're going to have to order it, in my opinion, man, because, see, with Best Buy, especially with the Rift S, it seems like they only get them in quantities of two. It seems like when Best Buy has Rift S's, then they don't keep them stocked. Like they'll get one, they'll get two, and they'll get sold out. And then whenever they do get some more, they're only in there for a few days before they're sold out again. So honestly speaking, Fatal, if you want to get a Rift S, to be assured that you get one, you're gonna have to order it. Matter of fact, mine should be in tomorrow. So, to tell you what happened with my Rift S, I like to think that you are aware of it. The left controller on my Rift S it went funky, and I got in touch with Oculus support, and one of the solutions that they recommended for me didn't work, but it didn't matter anyway because that same faulty controller, I paired it up with the Oculus Quest, and the same dysfunction that it was having on the Rift was also happening on the Quest. So that was clearly an issue with the controller. I had a 2-year replacement warranty on the Rift S, so that's what warranties are for. So I took it in and told them what the deal was. They didn't even open the box and make sure it was in there. They just put a stamp on it, scanned the box, ran all the information through, and ordered another Rift S for me. and it'll be there tomorrow. Now, one of the solutions that I could have took was to buy another Rift S controller, another touch controller, which is $70. But why do that if I paid the money for a replacement? So it should be here tomorrow. Um, Again, Fatal Charade, looking forward to you joining the community. And I promise you, when you see that Rift S, when you see the clarity of that Rift S, you're gonna notice, you're gonna notice the difference in clarity. So again, man, I think the best way to be assured that you'll be able to get an Oculus Rift S is to order it. Because other than that, you're gonna find yourself in a situation where you're gonna have to basically check Best Buy every single day to make sure, to see when they have one in stock. And I think the best thing to do is just order it, because if you order it, it'll be there within a few days. I think in most cases, if you order one, it should reach your local Best Buy within 3 to 5 days. So anyway. So shifting back to this situation with the PS5 and these VR developers, I still got to play Project Cars 2 in VR. You know what? I absolutely love Project Cars 2 in VR. Is it less nauseating than the CV1? That's. I think everyone deals with motion sickness the same. But I haven't, on my Rift S, I haven't really ran across a game this made me sick. But there's a couple of things to take into consideration with that, Fatal Charade. One is that I've been playing these VR games almost since day one of the PlayStation VR. So I know which games is going to make me motion sick, and on top of that, I don't know what that was. I got an alert here. I assume that meant somebody probably subscribed to the channel. If that be the case, let's see here. If someone has subscribed to the channel, higher in the Lord, thank you for the subscription. I appreciate it. So Fatal Charade, over the couple of years that I've been playing VR games, I built up a tolerance for it, which they call your VR legs. I built up a tolerance for it, so there's really not a lot of games that'll make me sick. So, with that being said, like Riggs, in the beginning, games like Riggs was one of the games. That's the game that made me the most sick, and I don't know if it's because of the nature of the game, or if it's because it was a game that came out in the infancy of the PlayStation VR. Because when the PlayStation VR first came out, I'm not gonna lie, some of those games did make me sick. Several of those games made me sick. Riggs, Resident Evil a little bit, because I had to, even the Batman Arkham, because I was still having to higher in the Lord, drink ginger ale to stop nausea. They say it works, because that's exactly what I did in the beginning. Higher, that's exactly what I had to do. I was drinking ginger ale because it settles your stomach, and then over time you'll build up your VR legs, you'll build up a tolerance to VR. So that ginger ale absolutely does work. I can attest to that, because I was drinking ginger ale for a couple of months until I got my VR legs under me. So, but there you have it. Anybody else who happens to be in this podcast, don't just take it from me. We have someone else in here, higher in the Lord, says drink ginger ale. Not only ginger ale, it's been suggested that you can eat ginger root. like candy, like maybe jelly beans or something, and make sure you're well rested before you play. Uh, you're less likely to get sick if you're playing a game that's sitting down versus standing up, all that kind of stuff. But definitely ginger ale is a big help. Um, Fatal Charade, you said you tried to play Pavlov once and it made me sick. Pavlov doesn't bother me one bit. And honestly, Fatal Charade, all I can tell you is I think it's just a game you're just going to have to build up some tolerance for. But, as we were just discussing, drink ginger ale. That's going to be a big help. So, as far as Project Cars 2 goes, um, I think Project Cars 2 and Drive Club VR are the only two VR racing games that I played that had a VR multiplayer in it. And we know the situation with Drive Club is extremely blurry, and then the situation with Project Cars 2, I absolutely love it. One of my fellow YouTube friends, Salsa Ketchup, who's a member of the VR Link, he feels that Project Cars 2 is a little bit arcadey for him. He thinks Assetto Corsa is a little more sim racing to him than Project Cars 2. But I like Project Cars 2. I don't really feel like it's arcadey. I feel like maybe it may not be as technical as GT Sport, but I think it's pretty damn close. So I consider Project Cars 2 a sim, and I do think you will like it in VR. So look forward to what you think about that. So getting back to this situation about these PS5 ports, I think we've seen several. I think we've seen several indications over the past couple of years of the limitations of the current PSVR. Mainly because of the PS4 and the PS4 Pro. Then the first sign of it was Bravo Team, and the one glaring, Bravo Team. The two things that glared out at me with Bravo Team, because Bravo Team, I was absolutely looking forward to that. It didn't have the player versus player multiplayer that I was looking for, but I think it did have the co-op though. As a matter of fact, I even think I think I even played co-op with Sick Humor before. I'm not exactly 100% sure. I can't remember offhand, but Bravo Team was basically the first. I considered it the first person shooter on VR. And the two things that glared out about Bravo Team was enemies, just all of a sudden spawn, right behind you. And then the other thing is that scopes didn't work on the sniper rifles. What I was finding out was that when I went to go pull up the rifle to look through the scope didn't work. The scope basically had a still image inside the scope. So I said, okay, I don't know what's going on here. And then the next red flag that I saw, Entertainment Wizard, Sony needs to get Ubisoft to agree to port Child of Eden and do a great VR mode like with Res Infinite. I mean, even if something like that were to happen, Entertainment Wizard, I don't think it would happen until the PS5 comes out. I think when the PS5 comes out, I think these developers will be able to bring their games over to the PlayStation VR format and still have a little bit of overhead to work with. A little bit of uh, I think they'll have a little bit of room to work with. I think right now they might be having to try to work too much magic with some of these games. I don't know, but getting back to some of what I think was red flags with PlayStation VR, games like Farpoint. You have a sniper rifle, which I actually really like the sniper rifle, but um, it doesn't have a scope. It just has your standard. It just has your standard reticle. You just look through this reticle and see the red dot, and that's it. You can't zoom in. It doesn't have a scope to zoom into. Firewall is the same way. None of the long range rifles have scopes on them. They have your common sights. Your common sights that you would find on automatic weapons, and you can't zoom into them. So that's why is this Mass Effect, Craig Harris? How are you doing? Afraid not. This is Mass Effect, but I know I posted that question to you before, Craig, about how you would feel if someone were to do a Mass Effect VR mod. But coming back to this situation with the PS5. Also, what else did I see that was a red flag? That there's not a terrible amount of multiplayer games on PSVR. Case in point, see you, Craig. A game like Raw Data on PCVR, it has there's single player and there's multiplayer, even though it's pretty much a desert. But for whatever reason, the multiplayer isn't on PSVR. And then you have this, to use the words of 7 Degrees of Gaming, you have this abomination that they call Warzone, which was on PC VR. It's supposed to be a 50-player player versus player where you can break off into squads of 5. This game, I guess, had some problems over on PC VR. When the game made it over to PlayStation VR, because it had been advertised for like over a year that it was gonna, it was supposed to be on the PlayStation VR. They had been advertising that for a while, and then the game was supposed to be crossplay along with PSVR. When it finally made it to PSVR, it had no multiplayer whatsoever. The graphics were bad. It was single player, and you were going up against the AI, and I guess the AI was like super stupid. And then in addition to the stupid AI, you had a situation where sometimes you would spawn right into the line of fire of the enemy. So that to me was another indication. That game should have never made it to the PlayStation VR. But I'm wondering if this was a case where they were trying to appease shareholders or something, or trying to meet a deadline, because that game should have never made it to the PlayStation VR. Because the pitch was that it was supposed to be 50 player versus player, and no multiplayer. Higher the Lord, that suck. I'm new to VR. What are your top 3 best VR games? Okay, so higher in the Lord, what headset do you have? And I'll tell you what the best 3 games are. So like basically, there's only really 2 formats. There's PC VR and PlayStation VR. So do you have a PC headset, or do you have a PlayStation VR? So don't let what I'm saying discourage you, because PlayStation VR, if it weren't for them, VR would not be where it's at right now. I'm just being brutally honest that I think one of the reasons why we haven't seen certain games on the PlayStation VR right now is because of the limitations of the PS4 and possibly the PS4 Pro. You have PS4? Okay, then I would have to recommend Firewall, but you'll need the aim controller for that. So I want to recommend Firewall. I definitely want to recommend Blood and Truth. You're going to need the Move controllers for that. So hopefully you got the Move controllers. And a third game. See here, I said Firewall, Blood and Truth. Uh, Everything else, there's a ton of games out there. Um, VR games are already cheap to begin with, but some of these games have been out long enough that you could probably catch them dirt cheap. Uh, I think Farpoint is another good game that I could recommend. If you like golf, I can recommend Everybody's Golf, Astrobot, um, No Man's Sky. Yeah, that's a good one. You can play that because that'll give you hours and hours and hours of gameplay. So those kind of games. So I can recommend those kind of games. But definitely the top two games that I definitely recommend is Firewall and Blood and Truth. So Spartan God, Lincoln, yes they are. PCVR way better, but Astrobot VR Game of the Year. Okay, I mean, I don't argue with that, Spartan God. Tell you the truth. Um, so we know once the Spartan God, we know once the PS5 drops, moving forward, we probably going to see again. I've said this before that when the PS5 comes out, the floodgates are going to open for VR games, and I still think that's going to happen. Because naturally, moving forward, as we speak right now, if a developer starts working on a game right now today, it's probably going to be optimized for the PS5. So it's probably going to be developed with the intentions that it's going to release on the PS5. Um, what I'm talking about right now, what made me bring this subject up is that I think we have games right now um, that's being announced that it will come to the PlayStation VR, but these are third-party games and we don't have dates. And I think that because we have dates, I think that is an indication that they're waiting for the PS5 so they can port these games over to the PS5, because I think the limitations of the PS4 and the PS4 Pro makes it a little bit difficult. I don't know. That's just my belief. Um, but there is one game that can prove me wrong, and that is a Zero Caliber. That game is That game is currently out on PC. Um, it is a first-person shooter. It is co-op, and one of the things that I pointed out about the PSVR on Zero Caliber, the scopes do work. When you pull a rifle up and you zoom in, it does work. And it works on a co-op. So now, when the player sometime this year it says it on the notes on the Steam page. It says it in the developer notes that player versus player is coming soon. So what I'm wondering is when when player versus player comes out, um, will those scopes still work in player versus player? If the scopes don't work on PC VR, on player versus player, they most certainly won't work on the PlayStation VR. That's what I'm still waiting to find out with Zero Caliber. Um, I think as far as the graphics goes, I don't think it's going to be that much of a compromise, if any. Like I said, my biggest concern is the scopes on the sniper rifles within the game. If they can find a way to make it work on the PlayStation VR, especially during player versus player, then I guess then I point the finger towards the developers as to why the games aren't on the current PSVR format versus blaming the hardware currently. So we'll have to wait and see, because I think Zero Caliber is supposed to come out on PlayStation VR around April. So But I don't know. We got another game that has me a little bit curious is Blade and Sorcery. I think the game is still in early access on PCVR and is slated to release December of this year. So my guess is we probably, well, I don't know, because by then the PS5 will be out. So I would like to think that, you know, whenever, if it releases in December of 2020 on PCVR, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be able to release it on the same day on PSVR, because by then the PS5 will be out. Higher in the Lord, the PS5 VR game are supposed to work on the PS4, correct? If the PS5 is going to cost as much as the iPhone, there's no way the PS5 is going to cost that much. I think the PS5, I think at the very, very, very most, it'll be $600. The general belief is that it's going to cost $500. And then yes, your current PlayStation VR, you know, Mark Cerny has already confirmed that your current PlayStation VR will work on the PS5. So no worries there. And again, when the PS5 hits, I think the floodgates are going to open. I think all these games that these developers probably, that I believe, have been holding back on, that's when I think they're going to flood the market, which is cool. Which is cool. My question is how long is it going to take before we get more AAA developers on board? I've already said that before about, you know, EA and Activision, that they're not going to get on board with VR until they see that it's a gold mine when they can walk in there with their wheelbarrows and walk out with mountains of gold. They're not going to take chances. They're going to let everybody else do the work. So basically, in terms of the software, these indie developers, they're the ones who brought VR to where it is right now. Because in the beginning, when, you know, VR was in its infancy, AAA developers was not going to step in and take a chance on it, you know. And then you have a situation with Resident Evil. That was this on the PlayStation VR. Still one of the, that's another game that I could recommend for you, higher in the Lord, as Resident Evil in VR. If you like horror games, I could recommend that to you because that's an entire game playable in VR. I think Capcom is I think they're the developers of Resident Evil. I think Sony paid them for the VR mode, for the VR exclusivity, because I don't think they would have done it on their own. I think that was a situation where they worked out something with Sony. So, but other than that, I think these indie developers they're the ones who got us where we are with VR. So we owe a lot to them. We owe as much to the indie developers. We owe just as much to them as we do to the to PlayStation VR for getting us where we're at. So I guess to put it simply, when you see something, talking about when you see a trailer for a game coming out and they give you a time frame for PC VR, but they don't give you a time frame for PlayStation VR. To me, I think that's just a roundabout way of saying that they're waiting for the PS5 to come out. So, he said, I almost died playing Kitchen. What game is that? I guess other little tidbits of news. Naturally, the biggest news is Microsoft waving the white flag to Sony and Nintendo. They said that is no longer, their main competition. They're going after Google and Amazon. And people are questioning, why is Microsoft going after two companies who don't produce a lot of games. They're in the streaming business, but they don't produce a lot of games. I can really care less about this stuff. Um, you said spin off of Resident Evil. Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. Probably that part on the PlayStation VR demo disc. There's a quick snippet of Resident Evil where a guy was chained up to a chair, and whoever his assistant, you saw his head rolling across the kitchen floor. I think that might be what you're referring to. Yeah, that was pretty spooky. So, but yeah, I don't. If you don't do good with horror games, I don't blame you because I don't either. What else? Let me. All right, I just got a message from the Titanfall Prisons. She has received the PlayStation VR that I sent her. Can't wait for you to try it out. Looking forward to you doing an unboxing. She says she's going to do an unboxing soon. Definitely looking forward to see what you think of Astrobot. Hope you enjoy it, young lady. It's my pleasure. Um, what else? What other news was I going to talk about? Boy, as far as uh, I've been getting by pretty good this week. It's already 11:27. I've been getting by pretty good this week without my Rift S. I haven't even turned my PC on. I turned it on. Actually, I turned it on once because I bought Grand Theft Auto 5. Because once my Rift S come back, I'm gonna do that Grand Theft Auto VR mod so I can play Grand Theft Auto in VR. So other than that, my PC has not even been turned on this week. I've been doing all my VR gaming on the Oculus Quest because it's really the only headset I have right now. Because I get my Rift S tomorrow, and you guys know that my PlayStation VR headset took a dump. I'm going to buy another one off of eBay. I just been, dragging my feet to get it. But now that that new map pack is out for Firewall, I need to go ahead and get up off my ass and scoop it up. So, but what I have been playing on the Oculus Quest, I have been playing a lot of Racket Fury table tennis, and I have been playing Beat Saber every single day. Now that I've been able to put custom tracks into the Beat Saber on the Quest version, I have fell in love with Beat Saber all over again. I absolutely love it. It's still a wonderful workout. And I've been playing this game virtually every day, and it's like, I'm not going to lie, when it comes to the PlayStation version of Beat Saber, I don't play it near as much as because it's great. It's just that you can't add custom tracks to it. So, if you were able to add custom tracks to the PlayStation version of Beat Saber, I'd be playing it just as I would probably play it the most there because I think the Move controllers are the best controllers to play Beat Saber. So the PlayStation Move controllers, I think, are the best controllers for Beat Saber. So, well, yeah, it's gonna be time for me to get up off my ass and get another PSVR headset because this thing here took a dump. It's all good though. I made a couple of Twitter posts this week. Let me take a quick look at them. And looks like Sick Humor is live. Shout out to Sick Humor. Let me check my Twitter posts. Give me a second, folks. I'm still looking. So we got a tweet from Cliff Blazinski. Offer still stands to consult on the Gears franchise. Microsoft, your move. So looks like Cliffy wants to get back in with Microsoft and work on another Gears. Let's see here. Ghost Giant is coming to the Quest. You know something? This is something else that I have been wanting to talk about, and I find this to be really weird. Last week I did a podcast showing you a chart from Super Data showing you fourth quarter results of VR headset sales, and the PlayStation VR had the most units sold with 338,000, with the Oculus Quest coming in second with 317,000. Now, we already know, I've said this before, that the Oculus Quest would have sold more units if they would have been able to keep up with demand. Now, what I find really interesting about this is the Valve Index. This headset costs $1,000, but yet it was the best-selling PCVR headset. This past the fourth quarter, they sold 103,000 headsets, mostly in anticipation of Half-Life Alyx. They're sitting on a total of 149,000 so far. Now, at the bottom of that list was the Rift S with 71,000 headsets sold this fourth quarter. I don't know how many headsets they have sold in total of 2019. So what I'm finding really interesting about this stat, about this whole thing, is that a couple of days ago, I read an article that on Steam VR that I think Steam has seen its biggest growth in VR. I think it jumped up to like 1.3%, and it was driven by the Oculus Rift S. So I'm thinking to myself, how is it possible for the Rift S to be the most used headset on Steam, but yet it sold the least amount of headsets? And I was like, that's weird. Higher in the Lord, you said may need to buy VR headset stock. Yeah, hey, yeah, I get what you mean, because it is on the rise. I don't know. I think you might be better suited to, I don't know shit about stocks, but I think you might be better suited to get stock in AR, because I've said it before. People laughed at me months ago when I said this stuff, but I think AR glasses are going to replace these as we know it. I think these are going to be gone in about 10 years, and and these are going to be your smartphones inside of AR glasses. Entertainment Wizard, what is good? Astrobot 2 needs to happen ASAP. I think that's a given. I think as you probably know by now, the head of the lead director, I believe, of Astrobot has been promoted to the head of Sony Japan Studios, I believe. So a lot of people are assuming that there's going to be an Astrobot 2. It is one of the best selling games on the PlayStation VR, so I'd like to think that it's a given we're going to get a sequel to Astrobot 2. But yes, it is a great game, and I didn't finish it. In order for me to finish it, I'll have to go and buy another copy, because I sent my physical copy to the Titanfall Princess. So getting back to this stat that I was talking about, I'm like, how is this possible? Because the Rift S had the biggest growth of users on Steam as far as VR headsets goes, because I think it had a growth of like 0.40%. But yet it sold the least amount of headsets in the fourth quarter. So if someone were to come up to you and said that that the Xbox One has more total use, or more hours of use, or even a higher percentage of use then the PlayStation format, I would be like, how is that possible? Because, we know that PlayStation has sold what 105 million. They shipped like almost 109, and you have a competitor that has only sold half or less than half of what you sold, but yet they would have a higher user rate. That is weird. So, and that's the way I feel about this situation. How is a headset um, that's at the bottom of the charts have the biggest usage on Steam? And then here's the thing about it. Again, this past quarter, the Rift S sold 71,000 units, and the Valve Index sold 103,000 units. But how is it that the Rift S still has a higher has a higher user rate than Valve, even though they sold more? I'm like, I don't understand how this formula is working. Um, but yeah, that was something that I wanted to talk about. But at first, I was going to do a podcast on it, and then I was like, I don't think it's worth dedicating an entire podcast to it. I was like, I think it's just something that I'll mention, but I don't think it's worth having an entire podcast for. And but it's 11:36 here. I do want to get a little bit of VR in before I go to bed, but I do have to be honest in saying that it'll probably be Beat Saber. I'll probably end up playing that again tonight before I go to bed because unless I want to play against the computer, um, honestly speaking, this late at night, there's not that many people playing Racket Fury. Um, when I got out of work today, there was way more people online versus what would be there now. And then yeah, I could jump around to servers on to other regions, but the ping on there is like terrible. It's like here in the eastern United States or even eastern Canada, my ping is like 55 or lower, which is in the green, and then I might go to a server over in Europe and it jumps up as high as 250. So which would be an awful experience. So. So over here in the eastern part of the region of North America, that would be the best. I would get the best ping there, but it's gonna have the least amount of people because of how late it is. So because of that, I'll probably end up playing Beat Saber. But I will say that about the Oculus Quest. I'll be glad when we get more multiplayer games on the Oculus Quest. That. I think the game is Population One. I think that's supposed to be a battle royale game that's going to be across all formats. I think it's going to be on PCVR as well as the Quest. There's no mention of this game coming to the PlayStation VR, but that's another thing that's puzzling is how some of these games can make its way over to the Quest but can't make it over to the PlayStation VR. That's very puzzling too. But Population One is a battle royale game. I know that's kind of played out. I know that's fading out and that kind of shit. But this is basically this is Fortnite with a lot better graphics. And even the Quest version of this game looks pretty good. That is a multiplayer game that I'm looking forward to. And there's also a few games on the coming, a few indie games. A game called Iron Sights that kind of reminds me of For Honor. I'm looking forward to that coming out. I did try to side load a game called Gladius VR. I guess it's a PSVR. It's a PC game, and basically it looks a lot like Blade and Sorcery that you could play on the Oculus Quest. I did try to side load it, and I didn't do something right, so I wasn't able to get it. I think this is supposed to be an alpha build, so I don't know. Maybe they took it down. I don't know. But yeah, that's I will be glad when we get more multiplayer games on the Quest, which I think I'm pretty sure is going to happen. So, but I think that's all I got. Shout out to J Dub. He retweeted me. He gave me a retweet of this podcast. J Dub, that's my guy. So I think I'll say no to Fortnite. No, I don't play. I don't play Fortnite. Um, Tell you the truth, the only issue I really ever had with Fortnite was the cartoonish graphics. I am a graphics focused person, especially when it comes to VR, because I think the more photorealistic the graphics are, the more immersive and the more real the game feels. So, and I think Half-Life Alyx is going to deliver the best of both worlds. I think it's going to give us amazing graphics and the physics, the Boneworks type physics. So I think Half-Life Alyx is going to be an amazing game. So, but that's why I'm looking forward to this Population 1, because it looks like everything Fortnite is, except that it's in VR, and it looks like it has a little bit better graphics. The graphics don't look like, doesn't look like something out of a Saturday morning cartoon. So, but there's a lot of other games out there like Standout. That's a battle royale game that's out right now, and based on the way that those graphics look, I don't understand why that game hasn't made it to PlayStation VR. I guess I'll have to go back and check and see if the game is still in early access, because I think Sony doesn't screw around with that early access stuff. You're gonna bring that stuff to PlayStation VR. It better be done. That's a game that, contractors and Onward. These are two more games that I don't see why, if why they haven't made it to the PlayStation VR as well, because I don't think the graphics are demanding enough that it would that it would be a hard port. I don't know. So, but yeah, there's a lot of games that's on PCVR right now. The ones that's in early access, I understand that, but there's a lot of games out there on PCVR that I'm like, why in the world has this game not been ported over to the PlayStation VR? As of right now, that's still the biggest user base as far as VR goes, and I think that's still, right now, that's still the mountaintop. I think I'm led to believe that you definitely want to get your games over there to give it a chance. So, but yeah, for the 19th time, I'm gonna get ready to get on out of here. Get ready to holler at this quest. Get a little bit of therapy in. Check out Sick Humor for a little while. Shout out to Sick Humor. Let me see what he got going on over there for a quick minute. And I think that's going to do it for me. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Fatal Charade, if you're still watching, man, I'm really looking forward to you getting that Rift S. I can't wait for you to, let me know what you think. And definitely make sure you do some kind of stream once you get that thing up and running. To the Titanfall Princess, there's a bunch of videos that you can watch how to hook the PlayStation VR up. It is really, really easy, but if you have any issues trying to set it up, don't hesitate to contact me. It'll only take like 2 or 3 minutes to walk you through it. It is very, very easy to set it up. Don't be intimidated by the few wires that it comes with. So, all right, y'all, that's gonna do it for me. Lately, when I've been giving y'all my deuces, the stream's been getting cut off before I get it out. So I'm saying it to y'all right now. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'll catch y'all a little bit later. Deuces. Make sure you tune in Saturday for live from Wakanda as I go over the latest in VR and gaming news. And maybe I'll get a little bit more in depth about this situation of Phil surrendering to Nintendo and Sony. Give my thoughts on that. But so make sure you tune into that. That's gonna do it for me, y'all. Appreciate y'all tuning in. And I will holler at y'all later. Deuces.